I guess we transition on to supporting the coach and even the players a little bit during the game because it's not as simple as just saying good job and then yelling at the referee when you don't agree with something. There is some other things. So one of the ones that I noted down was seeking and applying feedback. So you would hope that your coach is an expert or at least has something to offer you that assist your child, and whatever that may be, you know you can ask that in a respectful way. You can be, what is the next step? I had a conversation with a parent once because basically their child was a pretty consistent shooter if they were able to catch the ball at the same spot pretty much in their pocket, because then they didn't have to raise up and shoot. And the second that you threw a pass that was a little bit outside that pocket, up, down, left, right, didn't matter, it instantly turned them from a 60% practice shooter to a 30% practice shooter. So the
Mm-hmm.
feedback there was like, all right, he clearly can shoot and he's got this down pat. We need to now practice catching it off balance, a little bit uncomfortable, and then recorrecting yourself before putting the shot up, or putting the shot up in rhythm but out of balance a little bit. And whether or not that feedback gets applied, I'll never know. My job is just to simply give it to you, and then you need to apply it. And that's kind of the cheering that you can put on. So if you notice that your child's struggling to shoot today, then you encourage them on the other end with the controllable stuff. Hey, good defensive stance, keep that going, keep the energy, keep the hustle, those kind of things. That's the sort of encouragement that you should be offering the child. Because so easy can we fall into the trap of, oh, that's not a foul, etc. And I'll get into it on the reffing round. It'll probably go for a while, but you know control the controllable. I think that's a big thing for any sport. Put yourself in a position, do the right things, go into it with the understanding that I know how to shuffle my feet. If I made a mistake, I can correct it, come back and do it again. And then the other thing I wrote down was kind of understanding what the coach is doing. You can't go up to them in real time and ask, but what is your level of understanding the game? Because that's already a swaying pendulum of difference. But why is the coach trying this tactic? Why is the coach
Yep.
not allowing my
Absolutely.
child to play right now?
Mm.
And the reason why all of that's so important is because backseat coaching, just like anything that feels backseat, never really works the way you want it to. If you've ever been a backseat driver, it doesn't typically make the driver very happy. If you ever over ask questions to someone who's doing something, who's an expert, it typically starts to wear that person down. And this is the level of trust that goes into it. You hope that basketball coaches aren't just parents tapped on the shoulder to do it because there's no one else to do it. They actually want to be there, and they're trying to develop something and do it for the love of it.
Look, you touched upon some really good points there. Firstly, I guess one of the phrases that I like to use as a coach when things aren't going to plan in a game, okay, is let's focus on what we do and not so much on the other team. And that really ties into that control what you can control component. At the end of the day, in sports, sometimes you just get beaten by a better team or a better player, better opposition, okay? And you just have to accept that and respect that, okay? But what you want to do, especially in basketball, is be able to just go out there and play as best as you can within your ability. Okay, and it's all comes back to those fundamentals, starting from first day and the first season and the first year. That if you put out your best effort, okay, then at the end of the day, like we said earlier, the result's not so important. Okay, if you put out your best effort and you fell short, you can still hold your head up high, and you should still get a pat on the back. And your coach will probably see that. If he's a good coach, will go, "Hey, we went out there and threw everything at him, but we still lost today, and that's okay, because that's what happens in sports sometimes." You know what I mean? And I think that's a really important part. Where again that parent reinforcement of that message for your coach is critical, like you alluded to. Just because you lost the game, okay, or you might lose a handful of games in the season, okay, that it's a process. It's a process there, okay. And I know one of the things that I've tried to do more so than ever now in the last 5 years or so of coaching, maybe a bit longer even, is the emphasis on the 3-point shot. Okay, and I'm talking about at the under 10s level, under 12s level. Okay, that often it's a bit of a challenge for them, to some players at that range. But the key here is, to me as a coach, is the encouragement to add that shot to your game. Okay, like you said, that kid that can hit 60% from that spot, hey, we can all generally, okay, make those layups, right? Or there's 5 or 10 footers, okay. But if we fall in love with that, okay, and back in the day it was a different game, okay, the game has evolved a lot too. That's on another podcast potentially, okay. That if we fall in love with that 10-foot shot, you're never going to succeed in the game today. Okay, that's the reality. Okay, you're gonna, unless you become 7 foot tall, okay, that 10-foot shot is not really your bread and butter. So encouraging kids for me as a coach, whether they're 10 years old or 15 years old or whatever age they are, but it starts at that sort of, under 10s, under 12 sort of bracket to shoot that three. Okay, and because they were open, because they were the right option to shoot that three, and you sort of live with the result. You go, hey, well, you missed, but that's okay. Shoot it again next time. Okay, and that's the part where parents often will then murky the message that you try to deliver as a coach and encourage as a coach, because they'll say something like, oh, look, you can't shoot a three. Why don't you go shoot that 10-foot shot again that you make all the time? Okay, because that 10-foot shot is not going to be the one that's going to help you become a better player. Okay, you've obviously shoot that fairly well already. That's great. Use it when you're there. But when you're open at the 3-point line and your coach gives you a green light to shoot it, okay, I definitely am encouraging you to shoot that. And you would like, in those instances, I guess, where the parent also reinforces that message that, you know what, that's okay. You missed that one and you missed the last 10. But the point here is that, if you're going to succeed in the professional game of basketball now, you're probably going to need to be able to shoot that long range shot as best as possible.
Well, also, I think you were starting to touch on it. That parent pressure of you haven't scored yet, you're taking shots you don't need to take. You know that you can hit this shot, just go take it. And it's one of those. It's hilarious to hear because I've heard this as well. Like, oh, just do this; it'll just start working. Yeah, because the other team will just suddenly adjust to allow you to do the thing that they're legitimately trying to stop you from doing. By allowing easy layups. Yeah, they're just going to start giving those up. It's there's ebbs and flows to it. Like in theory, every coach would want their team to generate steals and get easy, fast
get the
break
ball.
layup.
Just get the ball.
Just get the ball and put it in the hoop, and that's easy, right? But it is, in a sense, basketball is a chess match. There's things going on, and the one team doesn't want the other team to score, and you might have had success last week doing something, and it doesn't mean that. And you see it, if we have to bring it back to the NBA, Steph Curry in the NBA Finals was phenomenal for 5 out of 6 of the games. And the one game that he wasn't, he missed all 9 of his threes and broke a 132 game streak of hitting threes in playoff games. And, during that game, no one should have told him, Steph, buddy, just stop shooting. Just go do some layups. It's, especially as coaching, we design it. We want to get good shots for players, right? And there's good shots that are designed to win the game, and then there are good shots for development. And it's odd to hear, but even in domestic leagues, there are different, like franchises in the NBA, there are different goals for the season. If you've been gifted a group of players that have never played before, that is a development season, and you hope that maybe in a season or two it comes together and they're competitive. But that is getting those players integrated into basketball. And then sometimes you get gifted 3 or 4 players that are really competent, and you juggle where you go, well, we can win, but we also want to make sure we develop. And then you get a team that's just like, if we don't win the championship, these parents are leaving the club. So, there's different tiers to it. And I guess also understanding, again, it comes back to being realistic. Is your child a prodigy, or is your child developing, or is your child sort of in the middle? And are you in an alignment with that?
I think that look, you're absolutely right. And I think in my opinion, that the one of the fundamentals of being supportive for your child and your player and for your coach and your team ultimately is being realistic in what you're looking for. Okay, so one of the classic ones is like rebounding. Okay, it's not very glamorous. There's no stats kept for it at a junior level, but it's a critical part of the game. We know as coaches and any basketball player knows that the more rebounds you can grab, the more chances you're going to give yourself to be able to win a game. Okay, just simply the more the ball you have, the better it is for your team. But the reality is that you're not going to grab every single rebound. Okay, so as a coach, over the years, obviously, of coaching, I started to sort of really define and refine my sort of messages to my players, and one of them in the rebounding component was, I'm not looking for a player to grab every rebound, as much as who wouldn't love that, okay? I'm looking for a player to contest and compete at every rebound. Okay, that's the key. Okay, I couldn't care less whether you grabbed one rebound, but you contested for all 20 shots. Okay, you went and jumped against that player and you had your eyes on the ball and you went to attempt to box out, obviously, at a higher level. You obviously put yourself in the front position and so on and so forth once you had those fundamentals in place and you competed. Okay, and it's the same thing like Steph Curry shooting nine shots. He kept shooting. Okay, it's the same message, whether it's defensively that player beats you every time, but you step up and you compete. That player out rebounds you every time because he's simply maybe a better, taller player, has got a jumps higher and stronger than you, but you compete. Okay, or whether you're just having a bad shooting day where you shoot 0 from 10. Okay, but you keep shooting because if you stop shooting, as we all know, you're not going to score. Okay, that's the whole reality. And I think that's a message where parents can really play a big part in that. You're looking for that competitiveness, that energy, that effort. And the result, again, is a byproduct. Okay, the result is a byproduct of that. And once if you have that fundamental in place, especially from an early age, then you'll get that player, as the scouts will talk about, with that high motor. Yeah, because that high motor is the one that everyone looks for. Okay, because when you've got that high motor, then you can refine it to a point where, once again, that they're ready, that it turns into production that you're looking for. All right, but without that motor, it's there's not much to work with, I think, there. And I think it all starts from those early days. I think the messages that you sort of try and give your child and the players out there.
Yeah, well, like effort translates. Like if you're putting effort in on the court, there's a high probability you put effort in training and you have good habits. And again, it's one of those things that, all right, if a scout comes and watch the game, which I think we'll get onto scouting a little bit later, but if a scout comes and watches your game and it's the one game that you really aren't playing well, the scout is talented enough to understand what's the level of effort, what's the IQ, like there is a difference between scouting with like results orientation and scouting with actual scouting. And so an actual scout will notice these are good tendencies. These are clearly shots that they can create for themselves that they're not hitting today, or that they're open, but they're not hitting. And also like they understand logic, they understand logic. They do look at other stats. They do look at other things. They do look at a body of work. It's not, not every single game has to be the be all and end all.